we'll talk a lot about wide receivers in the upcoming weeks. I want to talk about the next move. Where do you see the Pittsburgh Steelers going? I believe that there's another move coming. I'm kind of on the fence on a couple of places where it could go. Where do you see that next move?
I think it's center. I've found myself kind of out on drafting a center at this point. I think
Oh,
there are basically 4 centers in the NFL draft that I think you'd feel somewhat good about to varying degrees about the Steelers taking. I'd feel a little bit more confident if they brought in a veteran guy, to be quite honest. I think you can allocate your draft picks to more useful things, like you still need corner, wide receiver, tackle, defensive tackle. So that's why I think let's get a center. Let's wrap that up now. Let's put a bow on it. I mean, there's still guys available. There's Connor McGovern from the Jets, like went through some injuries last year, but I think he suffered his injury, I think end of October last year, so I feel like should be good to go by the time training camp starts. That shouldn't be an issue. I mean, you've got Connor Williams, Brian Allen. Like there are still names out there. There's limited names, but these guys have made it this far. I can't imagine there's a super huge market still for them at this point. So I'm in on going to get a veteran right now. You still got some money to throw around. I think the rest of their big moves are going to come in the NFL draft. They're big additions. So I'm saying go in on a quality center right now in free agency. Just clean that up, put a bow on it so that you can worry about other things later. I don't want to drag out the center debate for any longer.
So I agree. I think center's coming. I think center is the next move for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Williams and Brian Allen, Connor Williams are the 2 names that I have my eye on. I think the Steelers like Brian Allen, but I think if Connor Williams could be affordable, super affordable, that's the way they're going to go, because that's a much better center with, much better history of starting. He's only 26 years old, so you could sign him 2 years. I said yesterday, and I think I still stand by this, if the Steelers had a draft today, I think center would be their second pick, and I think they'd actually trade up in the second round to go get Zach Frazier or Graham Barton out of Duke. I think those 2 would be super high on their list. I think that they are super high on their list. I'm interested to see if they bring Barton in for a 30-day visit or a top 30 visit. There's been reports out there that Frazier is scheduled for a top 30 visit. He has not come in for a top 30 visit, but at the same time, he's a local visit, so it doesn't count towards top 30. Things get very confusing when it comes to that kind of stuff. I still think that they draft a center, I believe. But that's just a guess. That's just an assumption. But I 100% believe that they sign a center, and a big one. Like, I don't think that they're signing a Mason Cole. I think they're signing a Connor Williams or Brian Allen to a 1-year prove it deal, and then, let him go.
So you think it's a sign a center and get a Zach Frazier or a Graham Barton or something like that?
Yep.
Interesting.
I think it's a sign a center to a 1-year prove it deal to make sure that you have a veteran, because I look at it like this. Me and Nick talked about this yesterday. If I had to predict the Steelers' first 3 picks right now, it'd be they trade back in the first round, a couple of picks to acquire maybe another third or maybe a late second from another team, and they add an offensive tackle. J.C. Latham, Armarius Mims, I think both of them are going to be there at 20, and I think they can move back to get either of them. Then I think they move up in the second round to get a center with that additional pick plus their second round pick, and then they use their third round pick on a wide receiver. If I had to guess, if I was sitting there and that was my prediction, that was my prediction. I think that they don't want, if you do all those things, you don't want 2 rookie offensive linemen to impact a team that is ready to win right now. So if you have a center and then all you have to do is replace Dan Moore Jr. with Broderick Jones and then replace Broderick Jones with your next franchise right tackle, then I believe that that's the way that they could approach things. And then next year, they plug that center in. Their offensive line is ready to rock. That's it. Offensive line's good. Hopefully Nate Herbig is taking steps forward enough to the point where when Isaac Seumalo is ready to step away, Nate Herbig is the guy that's going to step in there and be the starter. And then you focus on everything else. But I think that would be my prediction. And that's why I think that they sign a center, because I look at it and say, you could start 2 rookies, but everything that this team has done kind of makes it seem like they're not going to sit around and just, they're not going to be like, all right, well, ready to go, but our offensive line has 2 rookie starters. So that's a question mark. Just, I feel like they could take a risk with 1. They're not going to take a risk with 2.
That makes a lot of sense. I think you make a good point about the 2 rookie offensive linemen. I didn't kind of consider that that's how it would fall, because you do. I mean, I guess, like, how would you feel about kind of flipping the center and the tackle conversation? Like, is Dan Moore, like, is replacing Dan Moore more pressing than getting a center of the future? I don't know if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I think that's an option. I think that depending on how the board falls, that could be the possibility where your rookie starter is your center and then Broderick stays at right tackle. But I think that they're going to have an opportunity to get both. Like, I don't think that the board's going to fall in a way where all these, because there's like the top heavy, really good offensive tackles. They're like the big 3 that you're like, all right, those are going to go big. They're going to go fast. They're going to go off the board, but it's deep. So teams are going to wait, and I said this last year. Last year, offensive tackle was such a heavy position to draft. Even in a draft class that wasn't that great at the position, it was a heavy position to draft. Therefore, there are a lot of teams that no longer need that offensive tackle. So you can look at it and say there will be some that are floaters later in the first round. I think Mims and Latham are both going to make their way to 20. And if the Steelers have to pick, like I see Jackson Powers-Johnson going right before the Steelers, maybe to Miami or wherever, or I guess Miami's right after him, but maybe to whoever's in front of them, first couple picks before them. When it comes to the 20th, I think there's just going to be options, and I don't think you're going to take Zach Frazier at 20. So I think you could kind of make some moves. But I do think that if the board falls in a different way, in a way that I do not predict, then yes, I don't think they'd have a problem looking at Dan Moore and saying, all right, well, you're going to start this year. I think it's either one, give or take, whoever's available, whoever they could be as their veteran. That's the way they're going to go about it.
Makes sense. That makes sense. I can't argue with any of it.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I'm concerned about is 3rd round wide receiver. I mean, just the further down you go, I feel like the likelihood that you find a real impact starter, especially at wide receiver, gets a little lower. But like we've talked about, I think they have enough on offense to kind of make you feel a little bit better about that.
Yeah, I think that they've plugged enough pieces in there right now to the point where they're kind of going to hope that, they land a George Pickens, like a later, this guy's falling, we could just grab him, in the middle of the 3rd round, something like that. I don't think it's a perfect science, and I think things could change. But right now, the way that I look at it, I think that they feel the wide receiver draft class is deep enough to wait it out and go 3rd round wide receiver. And to be honest, everything Mike Tomlin said out here, every single time he's talking about the wide receiver, the first thing he says is, oh, this is a very deep draft class at wide receiver. And I think guys are going to fall because wide receivers fly off the board typically, but then they kind of take a separation. It's like, the first round is crazy. The second round is not as crazy of wide receivers. And then it just starts to get into those middle grounds. And I think you could kind of hope that guys like, I don't know, Mitchell out of Texas, maybe, if they get lucky, slides into the 2nd round, and then you can make decisions there, which will force guys like, Coleman out of Florida State to fall further. A Ricky Pearsall might be available. A Todd McConkey might be available, or Ladd McConkey, excuse me, might be available later in the 3rd round. I think it'll be a domino effect where if they get it right, they'll have options in the 3rd round that they feel good enough with. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. You see any other moves coming, or are you good with center?
I don't know. Not really. Center. Give me a center. I'm still on that train.
I agree. I think a center and a slot corner is going to come at some point. I don't know who it is. I don't have names, but I do think that the way that every time somebody asked, I asked about the center position, and Mike Tomlin immediately brought up slot corner, and I went, okay.
Never let him know your next move.
Yeah, it's like, all right, sounds good, pal. Thank you. So I would say slot corner's on the radar. There are options out there, but I don't know. It's tough. And maybe a Chandon Sullivan returning is on their radar, but I could see them trying to kind of shoot for the stars and, see who's out there when it comes to available free agents.